chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Always good to see you, Congressman. Your reaction to some of those numbers, sir, that Monica Alba just shared, and I think one notable one of the 28 hours the president has spent speaking during these coronavirus briefings, the task force briefings, 4.5 minutes with an air of empathy, perhaps, for Americans who've lost their lives or are suffering hardships. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, it's not surprising, even if it is distressing, because this is a president where everything is about him. And so he enjoys talking about himself, his accomplishments. You know, I think those live press conferences have been a toxic mix of misinformation from the president, self-promotion, attacks on rivals, and as you saw, only 4.5 minutes talking about the extraordinary loss of over 50,000 American lives. You know, I've been urging for some time, frankly, that stations stop covering those press conferences live because of their penchant for misinformation. And now we see, you know, with graphic results, the president touting Clorox as a potential cure, and the calls coming into hotlines. I think, you know, in my view, the news should, after the press conference, replay something if it's newsworthy. But he uses them so much for self-promotion. He's so concerned about his ratings. He's having a hard time divorcing himself from them merely because they're watched, not because they add any particular value to the country during this pandemic. You know, this is not useful for the country for the president to simply speculate, opine, and to try to gloss over it, as Dr. Birx does on a daily basis now, by saying that he's just trying to put out his optimism, or that's the way he thinks out loud. This is the president of the United States. And when he does think out loud and those thoughts are ill-considered, they have deadly consequences. But even, I think, more tragically, when he interferes with the science, when he tries to push cures or potential cures before they're ready, then people lose their lives. And so I hope the president sticks to it. In terms of not doing these daily press briefings, but I suspect he can't stand being out of the public attention for very long, and that we'll see them resume.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.